November 29, 1970. A man is hiking in Isdalen with his 2 young daughters. Isdalen, the Ice Valley, is a remote hiking corridor southeast of Bergen, Norway. Granite walls. Cold. Quiet. Among the rocks, they find a woman's body. She is lying on her back. Her head is pointing downhill. Her hands are clenched against her chest. The front of her body has been severely burned. Her face is unrecognizable. Around her, objects. A bottle, some rubber boots, sleeping pills, scraps of burned paper. Every item has had its label removed. Every tag, every brand name, gone. Bergen Police open an investigation. They call it Case 13470. Soot was found in her lungs. She was alive when the fire started. The details of the scene, as documented by Bergen Police, are precise. The woman was lying on her back with her head pointing downhill. Her arms were held in front of her, hands clenched. This position, sometimes called the boxer position, is a known response to severe burns. The muscles contract. The body folds inward. It happens involuntarily. It happens after death, or close to it. The front of her body and her clothing had been severely burned. Her back had not been burned at all. There was no evidence of a campfire anywhere near the body. Beneath her, a fur hat. It tested positive for petrol. There was an unexplained bruise, a hematoma, on the right side of her neck. Its origin was not determined. A fall, a blow, something else. The record does not say. The objects arranged around her body were later described by investigators as looking ceremonial. An empty bottle of St. Halvard liqueur, 2 plastic water bottles, a plastic passport holder, empty, rubber boots, a woolen jumper, a scarf, nylon stockings, an umbrella, a purse, a matchbox, a watch, 2 earrings, a ring, 12 sleeping pills, scraps of burned paper. Every label had been removed from every item. Not just the clothing, every bottle. Every package, the cosmetics, the cream, the pills, everything she had carried had been systematically stripped of anything that could identify where it was purchased, what country it came from, or what name was on it. The 12 pills beside her were in a small plastic container. The label had been removed. Chemical analysis identified them as phenemol, small pink phenobarbital tablets, the standard Norwegian formulation, available locally. Traceable to any Norwegian pharmacy. 3 days after the body was found, investigators traced 2 abandoned suitcases at Bergen railway station to the unidentified woman. Inside, clothing and shoes with all labels removed, multiple wigs, non-prescription glasses, makeup and cosmetics with every brand marking scraped off, eczema cream with its label removed, 135 Norwegian kroner, Belgian coins, British coins, Swiss coins, maps, train and ferry timetables, and a pair of sunglasses. On them, a partial fingerprint. It matched the woman. In the lining of one suitcase, sewn into the fabric, 5 100 Deutsche Mark notes. 500 marks. Hidden. And medication. Blue and white capsules, phenobarbital, manufactured by John Wyeth and Brother Limited in England. Not sold in Norway. Not available on the continent in that specific Wyeth formulation. She had brought them with her. This is different from the pink phenemol tablets found beside her body at the scene. 2 forms of the same compound. 2 different sources. One from England, one from a Norwegian pharmacy. And a notepad, written in a code that no one could yet read. The autopsy was completed at the Gades Institutt on January 7, 1971. The toxicological analysis had been submitted 5 days earlier on January 2nd. The findings were clear on one point. She had died from a combination of phenobarbital poisoning and carbon monoxide inhalation. The concentration of phenobarbital in her blood was 4.5 milligrams per liter. That is a lethal range quantity. Forensic experts estimated she had consumed between 50 and 70 phenomol tablets, the same small pink Norwegian formulation as the 12 found beside her. The pills appeared to have been taken in 2 or 3 separate doses. The blue and white Wyeth capsules from her suitcase were not found in her system. She had brought a professional pharmaceutical supply from England. She did not use it. What she used was local. That distinction matters. The pills that killed her were local. The capsules she carried from England remained in the suitcase. And then there is the soot. Soot was found in her lungs. For soot to enter the lungs, a person must be breathing. Inhalation requires an open airway and an active respiratory system. The soot in her lungs is documentation, as clear as any autopsy finding, that she was alive when the fire reached her. Here is what that means in sequence. She consumed enough phenobarbital to render a person deeply incapacitated. At 4.5 milligrams per liter, a person would be approaching unconsciousness, or already there. The capacity for purposeful movement would be severely compromised or gone entirely. Yet the fire started, and she was breathing when it did. The burn pattern adds another layer. Her front was severely burned. Her back was not burned at all. If a person were lying still on the ground while burning, the fire would spread. It would not remain precisely contained to one surface. Bergen Police reviewed the findings and closed Case 13470. The ruling: probable suicide. The soot in her lungs was noted in the file. It was not given weight sufficient to change the verdict. She was buried in Bergen. The headstone reads, Kvinnen I Isdalen. The woman from Isdalen. No name, because no one knew it. While the body was being examined, investigators began contacting hotels across Norway. The woman had stayed in multiple cities. She had signed hotel registration cards under different names. The names, as police reconstructed them, were Genevieve Lancier, Claudia Tielt, Claudia Nielsen, Alexia Zarna Merches, Vera Jarl, Fenella Lork, Elizabeth Lienhauer, at least 8 aliases in total. Possibly more. One detail appeared on every registration, across every alias. She claimed to be Belgian. Bergen Police contacted Belgian authorities. The response came back clearly. None of the passports existed. None of the names corresponded to any Belgian citizen. The addresses were false. The birthplaces were false. The identities were entirely fabricated. The coded notepad eventually yielded to the Bergen investigators. The cipher was not complex, but it was deliberate. The first letter in each entry represented the month. The second letter represented the city, using a separate encoding. The numbers were days of her stay. Decoded: Bergen, Oslo, Stavanger, Trondheim, Paris. Every decoded entry matched a hotel record. The notepad was an operational log. She was documenting her own movements, in a format no one else could read without the key. Reconstruct the picture. 8 fake identities, multiple false passports, a coded travel log that mapped to hotel records across 4 Norwegian cities and Paris, labels removed from every item she carried, currency from multiple countries, money sewn into a suitcase lining. This is not the behavior of a person in distress. This is professional operational security. The word used when intelligence analysts describe this kind of systematic identity management is tradecraft. Whatever she was doing in Norway, she had not come to be found. The decoded notepad did not begin in Norway. The first entry is London, March 11th to the 16th, 1970. 6 days in London. No name recorded for the hotel. No alias identified for that stay. Only the city code and the dates. She left London on March 16th. The next entry in the log, Paris. The same month. She checked into the Vano Hotel under the name Geneviève Lancier. The blue and white Wyeth capsules in her suitcase were manufactured in London, at the Wyeth headquarters on Euston Road in the NW1 Postal District. They were not sold in Norway. The London visit is the only documented UK presence in her itinerary. Whether the capsules were acquired during those 6 days, from whom and where, is not established. What is established is the sequence: London, then Paris, then a Belgian alias at a Paris hotel. In the same month, François Genoux was staying at the Hôtel Georges V, 3 kilometers away. In 1970, Norway was in the middle of developing a classified anti-ship missile called the Pingvin, the Penguin. It was a NATO-era weapons program, and its test locations were classified. The trials that autumn involved integrating infrared seekers onto Storm-class patrol boats at 2 naval installations, Ulsnes, near Stavanger, and Håkonsvern, near Bergen. Her decoded itinerary places her in Stavanger from October 21st to the 24th, and in Bergen from October 30th through November 6th. Both cities, both test windows, weeks before her death. This coincidence did not escape everyone's attention. A classified Norwegian military file from December 1970, released to the public decades later, contains a memo from the commander of Norwegian Armed Forces, a man named Onarheim. He noted that the woman's movements, as reconstructed from the coded notepad, corresponded precisely to the locations of top-secret Pingvin missile trials. A fisherman named Ketil Kversoy came forward during the investigation. He did not go to Bergen Police. He went to a security officer at Ulsnes Naval Base. He had seen the woman near the test area. She was watching. His testimony was documented. Bergen Police never received it. Bergen Police did not know about any of this. The Norwegian Intelligence Service had opened their own investigation into the woman's death. They did not inform Bergen Police. The 2 investigations ran in parallel, with no communication between them. Bergen Police closed the case as a probable suicide in early 1971. What the Intelligence Service found, what conclusions they reached, what leads they pursued, has never been fully disclosed. The file remains restricted. 2 separate government bodies investigated the same dead woman in the same month. One concluded suicide. The other said nothing. In June 2023, Swiss newspaper NZZ published a new lead in the case. François Genoux, a Swiss banker. Nazi-affiliated, he had maintained financial and operational relationships with former SS officers into the post-war decades. He financed terrorist operations across Europe through intermediaries who moved under false names, across borders, carrying cash. Documentary records place Genoux at the Hôtel Georges V in Paris in March 1970. She was already in Paris, 6 days out of London, registered at the Vano Hotel as Geneviève Lancier, 3 kilometers from the Georges V. This is not proof of a connection. It is a sequence: London, then Paris, then Genoux in the same city, then Norway and the missile trials, then a burning body in the Ice Valley. Each data point alone means nothing. The sequence is harder to dismiss. In 2016, an NRK journalist named Marit Higraf was reviewing the case. She discovered that the original Bergen autopsy had preserved forensic samples, tissue, and dental material from 1970. They were still intact, 46 years old, and still usable. Bergen Police formally reopened Case 13470. The teeth were sent for isotope analysis. The food and water a person consumes during childhood leaves a chemical trace in the enamel of their teeth. The specific isotope ratios of strontium, oxygen, carbon vary by geography. They create a signature that persists for a lifetime. They cannot be removed. They cannot be faked. They do not respond to cover stories or false passports. Her signature placed her childhood near the French-German border, the Alsace region, possibly Bavaria. Born around 1930. She appears to have moved to France as a child, then moved again. Her dental work, the type and technique of fillings and repairs accumulated over her adult life, was consistent with practitioners across East Asia, Central Europe, Southern Europe, and South America. A lifetime of movement. a different dentist in each country. Her mitochondrial DNA belongs to haplogroup H24, a maternal lineage tracing to Southeast Europe or Southwest Asia. Through international genealogical databases, researchers have identified distant biological relatives in the Grand Est region of France, Alsace-Lorraine. The investigative teams are now tracing families from that border region who moved toward Belgium or toward the French Riviera in the years after the war, migration patterns that would explain both her cover identity and her roots. The family tree is being built backward, from those relatives toward her. Every label was gone. Every tag, every brand name, every identity document. She had removed all of it, but she could not remove her teeth. Case 13470 is officially open. Bergen Police have not closed it again. She is buried in Bergen. The headstone has not changed. The relatives in France have been identified. The family tree is being constructed. She has not yet been named. 55 years after a man found her burning among the rocks of Isdalen, the soot in her lungs, the pills in her blood, the fur hat soaked in petrol beneath her, no one has put a name to her. The Bergen police verdict in 1971 was probable suicide. The classified military file noted that her movements matched missile test locations. The Norwegian intelligence service ran a parallel investigation they never shared. The science in 2018 placed her childhood near the French-German border. The genealogists in 2025 are still working. What Bergen police could not have known in January 1971, that the samples would survive, that the isotope ratios in her teeth would still be readable 46 years later, that a journalist would find the evidence before it was destroyed, that the chemistry of childhood, of water drunk and food eaten in a specific valley near the French-German border, before the war ended, before any of this began, would outlast everything else. She erased herself completely. Almost.